Welcome, everybody. Hope that everybody's there. If you are there, we're going to ask you to test run our little emoji pack that's sitting in your system. If you can just hit the emojis and let us know that you're there, or drop us some chats in and just say hello to everybody that's in the system. It's really great to see you guys there. Kath, how are you? It's good to see you. Thanks for joining. I'm making the assumption, Kath, that you're going to be firing questions in this direction. So good to see all of you guys here. Yeah, it's really great to have Tiffany with us today. Absolutely love doing these webinars like this, where we get to just sort of dive in on someone who really has a lot of experience to share with us. Tiffany's been traveling the world this year, sharing about copywriting and AI, and we've had an opportunity to pick her brain a bit, and we're looking forward to getting stuck into that. We've had quite a few people dive into the session, so we're expecting some people to still jump on board, but there are plenty of us that have arrived to the session, so we are going to get started straight away. There are a couple of things that I do want to share with you. Most people who join these webinars still don't know who we are, and so we do want to just give you a bit of an idea of who we are and what we do. So just to do that, it's the easiest way to give you a bit of a feel of what we do is to share a little video clip with you. So here we go. That's a little intro to who we are and what kind of inspires us. We're really just about trying to understand this very enigmatic space between digital and people, and how to kind of make the most of it. And that's where we find ourselves for the last sort of 10 to 12 years. And that's given us a whole host of problems to solve for our clients over the while. We started in a social media space, moved into a mobile space, moved into all sorts of pieces of tech and transformation, and we've ended up in all of these different places. And so it has been quite a journey for us, and we've sort of found ourselves reinventing our space many times over the years. And so it's been really fun. What I do want to share with you, and this is literally the last day you can get involved. So if you run a business or involved in marketing space or anything, please scan this QR code or go to this link today, because we are shutting down the survey today, and it's been running for since April this year. We are surveying the digital marketing industry, and we are trying to find out one simple thing: how do people actually market themselves? Not how do we expect people to do so, and what are all the trends and the hypes telling us to do, and what we think we should be doing, etc. What are we actually doing to market ourselves, and what actually works? And so It's literally 16 questions, takes you less than 10 minutes to get through, and we are taking that survey. We shut the survey down today, and then we have been working with trend and industry experts, with people. Thanks, Tash, for sharing that through. We've been working with trend and industry experts to share trend articles and future articles around 2024 and onwards, around how people feel like they should be mapping out their digital experiences going forward for the marketing industry. Tiffany's actually one of our writers for that, so you'll be able to gain some more information around that, and she's particularly going to be talking about tone and AI, so there's some new information around that you can get your hands on. So we're excited about that. It's a really cool article. And so if you scan that, put that in, and then the final note on that is that the digital marketing conference that's taking place in November in Cape Town is offering a 40% discount to anyone who completes the survey for that conference. So if you do that, I think it's like 1,500 Rand saving or something close to that. It's quite a good discount on it. And then we actually launch the survey at the conference at the end of November. So we're very excited about that. If you can't make the conference, we will run a webinar about a week after that to share some of the insights. And then if you take the survey, you will get a free copy. We will be selling that survey at about 4,000 Rand. So if you do take the survey, you will get a free copy when it launches. So I hope that you take it, download it, just do the survey quickly and get your stuff on it. And if you need information on the survey, on the conference, just do me a favor. I'll drop my details in here for you now. You can just drop me a line and we will send you that information, Veronique. We've been involved in this conference for a while now, and it's actually quite a good one. It's also a great excuse to go to Cape Town for the weekend and knock it off as a business expense. So that's that project that we're doing. We're really excited to get this off the ground. It's been a year in the making, so very excited to do that, and we're hoping to be able to turn it into an annual thing and put it on the marketing calendar. And so that's that. Back into some new things. So this is our space. We really want to help our clients champion their company's digital growth and take you to that next level and really focus on whatever takes you to that next piece. But this is where we find ourselves all the time. This attract, engage, delight function. And we find ourselves talking about all of these different things at these different phases, from SEO to social media to emails to landing pages to websites to customer feedback to CRM systems to all of these things. And it all comes down to one simple thing for us, and that's data-driven marketing. And every single conversation, whether it's copywriting, whether it's very technical web infrastructures, or how to get your customers to be happy at the end of the day, for us, it always comes down to data-driven marketing. And we partner with HubSpot as a vehicle to make that stuff happen. And this is the journey we take people on, we take our clients on. And so as we've found ourselves in this space and learned a lot over the last 10 years, this is where we found ourselves, and this is what we're doing a lot of and building for our clients. And so very exciting space for us to be. And this is our journey between technology and people. And so we've done, over the years, we've worked with many different people in many different spaces, and we've been very privileged to do that. And we're looking forward to working with many more. And we've also been able to do this all around the world. So if you ever need any help, give us a shout. Otherwise, let's get on to the good stuff. So that's us. Right, the reason we all came here, Tiffany. So let me just put this out there. So I talked to quite a few copywriters around AI, and what I look for is some new information about a perspective around AI that is new or meaningful, and also someone who can articulate that in a way that helps people grow from that perspective. And I really do struggle to meet people and work with people who are able to do that for others. And my conversations with Tiffany have been really fantastic in that regard, because she has a capacity to kind of think broader than herself and her own capacity, and be able to kind of think both in a bigger sort of corporate fashion and in a smaller business mentality, but then also think about it as herself in her own business space and her own writing processes. And so I really do believe that you guys are going to get a lot of value out of listening to what she has to say as she kind of applies it into different spaces. But what I am going to do is, we have an interview style. So there's no presentation. We have some questions that we're going to dive through. And if you leave it to us, we can get through this. We both love talking. We're going to get through this whether you help us or not. But what I am going to do is I'm going to ask that you fly some questions in here, because I'm making the assumption that you signed up to this because you are hoping for some information. The topic was elevating copy, the synergy between human creativity and AI advancements. And let's be honest, that's the broadest AI copywriting topic we've come up with. We are assuming that you're coming in with some questions. And if you post those questions up here, I will review those as we're going through. And we will, if we're already going to answer them, we'll tackle them. If we're not, we'll find ways to bring them into the session. And if we're not able to, we'll find ways. We're probably going to write this up into a paper, and then we'll deal with them after that. And then we'll make that stuff available as we go and try and resource that to you guys in another way. But really use this as an opportunity to kind of present your questions, and let's see if we can tackle them this morning. So use the chat, or if you want to use the actual question section of it, you can. We'll tackle both as we go. But please feel free to throw some stuff in and we'll tackle it together. So Tiffany, I don't know if you want to kind of maybe just kick off, let us know a little about yourself. I know that you've been traveling a lot. Maybe share some of the conferences that you've been at. They've been very exciting, watching you jet setting around all over.
It feels like I've been jet setting, but actually it's only been one big trip this year to the UK. I've just come back from Manchester, where I spoke on AI at a supply chain summit, followed by a London talk on creativity. So actually two very different talks for different audiences in different cities, on different topics, both of which I'm going to reference now. So I hope to bring the best of both of those talks to the table today. For those who are wondering who this woman is, I'm Tiffany Markman. I'm predominantly a copywriter. I spend about 8 hours a day writing things and have done that for 18 years. I also teach writing. So I go into companies and teach corporate teams or marketing teams, comms teams, how to write better across a variety of different applications. And I speak about writing. So I will often get up on a stage at an event or conference or an Indaba or whatever, a summit, and speak about creativity, AI, social media, marketing related things. So I guess the summary of what I do is that I reach, I teach, and I speech. Those are the things. And really what I'm hoping to do today is answer, there are a couple of questions that Mike and I are going to workshop, I suppose, in the session. But the main question is, what is the synergy between human creativity and AI? And how do we leverage that to make copywriting better? Mike, do you think that's an accurate sort of nutshell?
Yeah, I think that's a great sort of summation of where we're hoping to get to. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, guys, feel free. We've already got some stuff from Kath. I've made a note here. I've got a way to kind of tackle that. So keep those questions coming through, and as we go through, please roll them in. Tiffany, I'm going to kick off.
Okay.
So let's start here. The synergy between human creatives and AI. Does it actually lead to better content creation? And let me preface this with two things. I am personally getting really tired of receiving emails that are sort of titled in the heading around, I'm now going to forget what it was, but it has been ingrained in my head. Exponential is a great favorite ChatGPT word. Unlimited potential, unlock, unlock the
Gross.
potential, other
Gross.
phrase, and all of these things are, and my inbox is full of email copy that have titles around this on an ongoing basis. And so I have this this thing in my head around like the quality of creative, because I can see this, and I know that for myself. Like when I speak at any conference and I talk about this thing, like the big thing for me is I just say, guys, never use the word thrilled, because ChatGPT loves thrilled. Like that's my like go-to word that I know that somebody's used ChatGPT, because like that word for me, it's like it's in every ChatGPT statement. If you ask them to like write you event copy, they'll say, "We're thrilled to announce," you know. So for me, like, where is this sitting? Does it actually create better copywriting circumstances?
So if we go to the question of synergy between human creatives and AI, I think it's important to say that it's not synergy. So we call it that, but synergy implies that there's an equal relationship between two parties, right? So where there's synergy, you and I are egalitarian, but there can't be synergy between humans and AI, because humans are human and AI is not. It's application of AI by humans. There's no such thing as synergy. I can't feel synergy with a large language model. So that's the first thing. The relationship's not equal. It's never going to be synergy. It's going to be a question of how effectively and powerfully can humans apply what's baked into AI. And yes, there is unlimited exponential potential, and I'm thrilled by the opportunities inherent in applying that, because it makes humans faster, or at least it has the potential to make humans faster, but it also has the potential to make us worse and lazy. And so some of the things that I want to speak about relate to co-editing the outputs that you get from a large language model to humanize them, to make them resonate. And those are a lot of the tips that I'll be providing later. But really, if I had to dumb it down into a 3-step process, the process would be to achieve the best synergy or the best application of AI by a human brain. You have to use your human brain first for creativity, strategy, planning. Then you turn to AI, to a large language model, generative AI, whatever it might be, whether it's design or copy, to provide some raw material for you to work with. And then you have to go back to the human brain again to refine the output. So it makes us faster in some ways, but slower in others. And it also requires more vigilance.
Sorry, I have to keep checking that I'm on not on mute. I've got a bit of a cold, so I keep coughing and trying not to cough over you as you talk. But it's a little bit like the design thinking model of kind of like expand your thinking and retract your thinking. So it's like using your human brain to kind of like define the process to kind of, and then using AI to kind of expand that process or and then do it again, and to kind of, so you're using AI to really flesh things out, to maybe expand your thinking a bit further, to do the hard work of the breadth of what you need to get to, but then using your human brain to do the thing it's built for, which is the problem solving and the creative thinking.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I like, and also like, so I've got ChatGPT on my phone, and I find myself using it quite a lot like that, because I'll take before using it in an article, before writing an article, I'll have an article subject in my head, and I'll actually like brainstorm it against ChatGPT. So I'll have done some reading, and then come up with a theory around that reading. So from my perspective, I don't write copy for this as a copywriter would, where we're tasked on, say, a brief. I write as a thought leader. So I'm always trying to look for something new to say about an existing topic. So I'll do some reading and I'll go, okay, well, maybe there's a new way to look at this. And so then I'll give ChatGPT that information I'm reading, and then I'll say, what if we looked at it like this? And then I'll kind of spar with it. until it irritates me. And then I'll kind of keep going with it until we come up with something. And then from there, I'll say, okay, cool. Now give me an article from what we've spoken about. And then from there, take it into Word, and kind of then flesh it into an actual article. But that human brain first piece is the research function. Then the AI is the sparring and the intellectual piece for me, like the intellectual sparring piece that allows me to kind of open the breadth of my own thinking, which is often the thing that holds you back.
Yeah.
And then
be
okay, now do the whole hard work and flesh this thing into something, and then give it back to me and let me creatively push this into something worthwhile.
Exactly. I think the important thing to bear in mind is that the great potential of an AI tool is to sanity check us, and not for real sanity, just for breadth of thought. It's breadth. It's exactly what you said. So I find AI, I'm going to just use AI, even though what I really mean is a large language model, but I'm going to say AI because it's just easier. The benefit for me is to use it as a research assistant, but I have to remember that it's a young, fallible, slightly lazy, quite inexperienced assistant who's still trying to prove himself. It will hallucinate, so it will tell me things with great confidence that are patently untrue. It will be very eager, but not entirely trustworthy. And so, yes, I use it to sanity check my own human brainstorming. I use it a lot to simplify complex phrasing. I use it a lot for birthday messages. So I'll write a birthday message and then I'll say to ChatGPT, make this a limerick or whatever. But it actually takes me a little bit longer than it would if I weren't using ChatGPT. My output will be richer at the end, but it takes me slightly longer to get there because its output is flawed, deeply flawed, and needs quite a lot of massaging. And you have to be quite a good manipulator of copy and content to do the massaging that it needs, in my opinion. Can we talk, Mike, about the difference between content and copy? Because I think that's also that's something that many companies don't understand. And I think that content creators are not copywriters, and we need to just smash that myth once and for all.
Yeah, and it would also speak to this idea of curation versus creation as well, I think. Yeah. So, okay. So what is the difference between copywriting and content creation?
So content creation,
in your mind,
for the purpose of content marketing, because that's the goal, right? Is an activity. It's not an art form. It's an activity with the potential power to grow a business or a brand. That's the reason we do content marketing. So content creation is the building of resources, the activity of the building of resources in order to grow a business, right? Or a brand or whatever. But copywriting is a discipline. I don't want to sound like one of those pretentious copywriters, but it can be an art form. Anyone who's ever watched the Cannes Lions, it can be an art form. And the art form is designed not to grow a business, but to push people towards a desired action. The goal of copy is behavior change or belief change or messaging change or brand change. The goal of content is nudging. Copy doesn't try and nudge. Copy tries to change. Content tries to nudge. Let's be very clear. AI in its current iteration is not capable of copywriting. It will be, and it will be soon. Like maybe by the time we finish this discussion, it will have taken steps, in the furtherance of that aim. But for the time being, generative AI cannot write copy. It can produce content. It's quite good at producing content, but that is not copy yet.
I really like that definition of nudge to kind of change. And because there's a nuance, and that nuance is often what I battle with in the writing of copy, or in copy from ChatGPT as an example. And I'm even I use the pro version, and I use it for a lot of writing that I do. And even where it's needing to be quite specific in its output, it can still be quite brash and a little bit too hard hitting.
There's no subtlety at all. Yeah, there's no subtlety. Like it's a hammer. It's a hammer, not a chisel.
Yeah. So even because of the nature of what we do marketing writing, sales writing, and customer service writing. But even in sales writing, it's still too hard in cases. So marketing, we kind of assume it's too hard. But even in the sales pitch, it can be too hard. And sales, you've got to be harder than you think. So there is this nuance, this nudge, and I love that word nudge. I think it's the right. You can tell you're a copywriter. You've spent some time figuring out what that is. So that's really great. And I think that this might actually pick up a little bit on Chris's point. So Chris Parsons threw this into the chat earlier on, where he's saying, do you think that AI, as like copywriters increasingly leverage AI, do you think that the content realm is going to become more homogenous? And maybe this is speaking to the difference between content creation and content creation and copywriting. Maybe those two worlds, like if you look at one, then maybe yes, but you look at the other, then maybe no.
I think it's a wonderful question, because I think content has already become homogenous before we started using ChatGPT. I think that these sort of production houses or conveyor belt mills of article writing for SEO 5 years ago had already started to make content homogenous and boring and vanilla. So that's already happened. I actually don't think that's going to happen in a significant way, because I think that copywriters and clients and companies that understand copy are going to infuse their writing with a lot more nuance, detail, vividness, richness, emotion, resonance, subtlety, vernacular, slang, pop culture references, geographic localization. There's going to be a lot more dialogue in copy. The nature of copy is going to change in order to make it more obvious what is AI assisted and what is not. And so I think that content is homogenous already and is just going to get worse. But I think that clever content and copy are going to get more niche than they are currently. And I think that there's going to be a messy middle. There's going to be the shit on this side and the really good stuff on this side, and then a larger, messier middle than we have now. That's what I think will happen, Chris, in response to your excellent question.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with some newer AI models that aren't specific for writing, but more for like personal assistance. And the way that the writing aspect of that chat, so the way the chat responds to you, has been niched, for want of a better word. So it's more casual, it's more personal, it's more how a human being would talk to you, as opposed to the formality of what sits in, say, ChatGPT. And it's quite interesting that you're even starting to see these tonal changes taking place. So that niche capacity of what you're saying, I think we're going to start seeing these engines coming through that will almost serve as like purposes. So you might start finding particular types of writing engines being created for specific purposes, which I think will be really useful, because I don't think you're going to have one AI engine that does it all, because there are too many permutations in the human language that are going to be able to do that. We're human beings, too much of an we change too often.
Exactly.
We're not we are smart and it can do stuff, but the human nature is shifting so much. So if you're trying to get into the communication game, it's going to be too much too quickly.
I say this a lot. You know, when people find out what I do for a living, they inevitably say to me, are you worried that AI is going to take your job? And I usually say, no, because long before everyone was using ChatGPT, the industry that I work in and that many of our participants today work in, so the media industry, which is an umbrella term for writing, journalism, content creation, copy, marketing, has been changing exponentially anyway. It's unrecognizable now compared to what it was even 5 years ago. So even without AI, the industry that we work in is nothing like it was previously now. And in 5 years, it will be unrecognizable. And I want to remind everyone that when Microsoft spell check came out, everyone said to the editors, you'll be unemployable. Well, no, that didn't happen. And then Grammarly, and then we were asked, are you panicking? Still not. And Hemingway, are you panicking? No. And then Quillbot, which I see someone mentioned in the chat, a wonderful tool. Are you worried that you won't have a job? No, still not. Because you're always going to need humans. You can't let a self-driving forklift loose in a warehouse without somebody there to program it, maintain it, remotely monitor it, train it. You know, we'll always be around. And I think as long as we are clear on what it does well and what it doesn't do well, then it offers some amazingly exciting opportunities. And I'm quite gung-ho to watch the tonal changes that happen and how the AI itself evolves as it responds to human beings. I think it's awesome. But of course, one has to be aware of the challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've got this AI is not going to take over the creative job. And I like your comment from a creative perspective that it's not going to take over that role. And I also like the fact that what you're saying is this process of iteration, human, AI, human. Like, I don't think it's a three-step process. I see it, if I understand it correctly, it's iterative. You could do that over and over and over and over again. That's the way I see it, writing from a thought leadership perspective, and I understand your creative process being similar.
Did we lose you, Mike? I think Mike froze. Come back, Mike. Come back, Mike. All right, well, I'm going to talk until Mike comes back. Oh, now it's just me. So I'm going to have to talk until Mike comes back. I hope you are all still with me. Just throw me an emoji to show me that you're still there and that you can still hear me and see me. Let's have some. Thank you. Right, so I'll just keep talking until we get Mike back. One of the questions that Mike, here he is. Mike, I was just taking over. The bots have taken over.
Well done. Sorry, guys, my internet dropped as we do sometimes. I'm on my backup line. Let's see. Sorry about that.
I was all excited to boot you out and take over and then send you a WhatsApp saying the robots have...
Just run it.
No.
No, that's cool. But I think, so what I was saying was, I think it leads into that question that we sort of threw in at the last minute, which was this concept of like speeding up the writing process. Because I think that there's the industry expectation now that all of a sudden copywriting is going to get cheaper and it's going to get faster. Oh, you just put it in ChatGPT. And that and like the background to this, guys, is that I was explaining that so I'm terrible with this, but like the analogy that I used was that for me, I feel like sometimes when I'm writing the article, and you got to bear in mind I'm more of a strategist than a creative, but when I'm writing the article, I feel like I'm constructing. And when I'm theorizing and coming up with what it should say, I feel like I'm the architect. And so now the time that I'm spending is more in the architecture phase than in the constructing phase. And for me, that means that I'm spending sometimes even more time on an article because I'm sparring ideas, and that sometimes throws me into a space where I'm kind of pushed for better ideas, because I'm kind of going, what you're thinking about is not the right thing. So you need to be thinking harder on this and pushing yourself harder on your thinking process. And so the article writing process, what I thought initially was going to be quick. The writing, the construction process, yes. But the process to get to that article is actually, in some cases, taking longer. In some, not. If it's a case of like taking an idea and one idea and blending the two together and putting something out, yes, that's quick. But if it's an idea of like original thought or a deep dive into research to pull something out, sometimes that's actually taking longer. So
I think, again, that it's really important to differentiate, just as we did between copy and content, to differentiate between companies that are used to non-writers, or companies that don't hire writers, and companies that do hire writers. Because companies that have never had the budget or the interest in hiring writers are diving into AI generated copy with great enthusiasm, because it's filling a gap that they'd never really been able to fill before, or been able to afford to fill before. And so where there was no copy, there's now mediocre copy because it's AI generated without the co-editing and the iteration and the human stuff. So those companies, for them, it's wonderful. They've now got long documents where before they had 2 lines, and it's long documents mostly of shit, but it's more shit than they had previously. So there's a lot of like confidence that comes with that kind of padding. But then the companies that respect copy and content and value it and understand it, that understand what content creation is and what copywriting is and what messaging is, they know that we are not actually going to get faster in measurable ways that affect what we charge, but we are going to be able to be more productive in the planning stages and spend a little less time maybe in the fine-tuning stages, but more time in the architecture phase. So I always find that the people who think that AI is going to take human jobs from content writers and copywriters are people who don't really understand what we do. But also, many of my clients can't even brief me. So how in the name of God are we expecting them to brief a generative AI system? Like, they can't even tell me what they want. You're telling me these people can craft a mega prompt? No ways. So it's unlikely that clients who were never hiring writers in the first place are going to direct more work to human copywriters because they're using ChatGPT for content. But it is likely that the clients who value what we do will come to understand in very short order the difference between AI-assisted content created by a human and AI-generated content briefed into a bot. Yeah, so just in case anyone out there was concerned that I wouldn't have firm opinions, I hope I've now entirely busted that myth.
I've got a reputation for sort of sending sort of these briefs that are like what I believe are very detailed, but apparently are not. And that in my brain makes sense, and that to the team that is sort of don't quite understand everything that's going on.
Well,
but apparently
tomorrow night I'm giving a webinar on briefing. If you want to jump in.
I might need to attend. I might not want to and be able to just continue to live in my little ignorant world. But since ChatGPT, I have been taking my very vague briefs and dropping them into ChatGPT and saying, write a good brief out of this, and then I would email that to the team. And they've been complimenting me on my really good briefs of late. So I think you're right about the idea of the non-writers and having a tool set that makes them better communicators and writers. And I think that especially people who are time-starved or lazy, it's just, I've got the ideas in my head, let me throw the ideas out loosely, and then let something construct my ideas in a better way. I'll read through it, double check it's correct, and then it's good to go. But I don't want to sit 20 for ages and just smash the whole thing out. Yeah. So let's get a little bit practical. Tiffany, what do you see creatives making mistakes on? What are the biggest, most significant mistakes that you're seeing?
So true creatives are pretty cautious when it comes to tools. So their mistakes tend not to be obvious. Their mistakes tend to be before we see the output. And what I mean by that is a creative who's not skilled in prompting will give the AI the wrong prompts or vague prompts or prompts that aren't meaty or specific enough. And so it will take them a long time to get to something valuable. That's the most common mistake, I think, among creatives who are trying to use generative AI. It's just shitty prompts. And I'm a big fan of what I call the mega prompt. I'll paste an example into the chat just now. But it just explains that you need to do multiple things in a prompt if you want to get to the desired output quickly. So that's what creatives are doing. But more broadly than that, I'm seeing lots of like indiscriminate pasting of AI generated text into email campaigns, onto LinkedIn, not just without co-editing, without even editing. So the asterisks that ChatGPT uses, you can see them in the copy, or like ChatGPT has a very unique way of punctuating headlines or headings using title case, which most South African humans don't do. So you can tell when it's ChatGPT, and there are these words, it's very, very keyword stuffed usually because it's drawing on text databases that are designed for SEO. So it'll repeat synonyms obsessively, which sounds and looks horrendous. So it's kind of obvious. And both groups can benefit from training. So real creatives can benefit from training on crafting mega prompts, and more mainstream content creators need to learn how to humanize and edit the output so that it's not completely obvious that you've just given the job to a bot rather than your brain. On that note, let me just pop the mega prompt example into the chat for you. This is one of my favorite ones. I use it for almost everything. And you are welcome to steal it for your, the thing said to me, slow down, Shakespeare. All right, let me just take some of this out. I gave you too much. That's so funny. Okay, let's see if that will work.
Cool. So keep an eye on what's coming in.
It still says that I'm being too long-winded. That's funny. That doesn't happen to me often. There we go. Okay, so this is a mega prompt. You'll see it in the chat. You tell it who to act as. You give it a task. You give it context for the task. You give it a topic, an audience, a style, a goal, and then most importantly, you apply constraints to it. We don't do this when we brief a large language model. We don't give it constraints, and so it's all over the place. I think somebody asked a question in the chat earlier, how do you get a less formal output from it? You have to prompt it to give you less formal stuff. I think it was maybe Jackie who asked that question. Was it you, Jackie? I think it might have. Oh, it was Veronique. Veronique said, is there a friendly AI? No, but you can use ChatGPT to be more friendly by briefing it properly.
Yeah.
So feel free to steal my mega prompt.
So this is the persona piece, which is that whole concept of just telling them who to act like. So I really like this, so acting as a website copywriter, weirdly, I find there's a difference between an award-winning copywriter and just a copywriter. Funny enough, and then also niching things down. So a political copywriter tends to write very sharp and short, and then also into specific industries. So a copywriter in an industry, like the type of copywriter, the personas. The one that I have probably added to this, I haven't seen this particular prompt, this particular prompt style. Oh no, you've got it there, audience. Yeah, so I just put that down as industry. So my brain goes industry, but you were saying audience, so that's cool. Yeah, that's lekker. That's very, very cool. I like that a lot. So that constraints thing drives me nuts because it never listens to me.
It listens to me and it apologizes if it gets it wrong.
Well, clearly it respects you a lot more than it respects me. Yeah.
I'm very strict. Paragraphs mustn't be more than 4 lines long. I don't like my sentences to be more than 20 words. They can't start with and, but, and because. I like lots of open space. shorter words rather than longer words, so use rather than utilize, always give me the provocative viewpoint at the end. Yeah, and I'm very specific about how I want it formatted. So headlines must be in bigger text, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that's cool. And then something that what I can share, it's something that's helped me quite a lot, and I'm speaking more as a non-copywriter. Now the chat's just having a big go at me, but now the thing that's really helped me is as a non-copywriter, I don't really see myself as much of a writer, but the challenge for me when I am trying to write for something specific. So now I'm not really in like a thought leadership space, but I'm trying to now sell a product that I've got as a business person. Is that I'll write a description of my product, which when I write that description, I'm doing exactly what I'm advising my client not to do, which is I'm talking about function, I'm not talking about benefit, I'm not placing it in the customer's view, et cetera, et cetera. And so, because that's how we think as, like when we talk about our stuff, that's how we think. There's no way around it. So what I have found quite useful as a mechanism is to take whatever I've written and to not worry about how I'm writing it, but to take what I've written and then to paste that into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this with the Quest model, or rewrite this with the ADA model, rewrite this with the problem, agitate, and solve model. So, and that's not so that I can use what they've used to rewrite. But what I'll do then is I'll pull up all the three versions, and then I will pull together another rewritten version with what they have, and then sort of start to structure around that. Because what I find is that it's quite good at reading what you've done and then going, oh, you're writing an article around, I don't know, CRM solutions. The problem that people face here is this and this, because you're talking about these functions. And so this is actually the problem you should be speaking to. And then one of my sort of main functions that I use, which I think copywriters do quite well, but if you're not a copywriter, this doesn't come naturally, is writing so that the person reading is the hero of the article, not the
product or the brand.
The brand. Because writers do that quite naturally, but non-writers don't. And
I think that I think that the copywriters in the room with us now might agree that we think in a benefit-driven way rather than a feature-driven way. I like to think we do. And we also, I like to think in a reader as protagonist way rather than us or the brand as the protagonist.
Yes,
I'd like to think we do that. I don't know if we all do it, and I've been doing it for 20 years, so I guess I've had a lot of practice. I could think of nothing worse than putting text into ChatGPT and saying, rewrite this for me using problem, agitate, solve, or before, after bridge, or ADA, or like that. That just feels like it's not as clever as I am. So I've never been that brave. Hopefully I will never be that brave. I'd rather just do it. I'm also a control freak, so there you go.
Yeah, but what I find is for me, when I own the product, I'm not thinking like that. It's too, I'm already boxed. I'm going, but this is my solution. This is how I sell it. This is how I talk about it. This is how I, and so it's really difficult to break out of that box when you're writing.
It's true. You're too close to it.
You're way too close to it. And so if you're sitting there as a strategist or a marketing strategist or even an agency strategist, and a business owner or a business, you tend to be focused around the business objective and not the person reading. And writers are very good here. But if these guys followed more of my understanding around these processes, they would understand where the copywriter is trying to come from, and you would get this understanding of this middle world that needs to be kind of pulled together. So it's really interesting. around. Yeah, it's very cool. That mega prompt is a winner. So that's very okay. So you mentioned that one of the things is knowing how to humanize that AI content.
Yeah.
So can you share some thoughts around how you go about that?
Yeah. So the talk that I gave in Manchester was basically an hour just on this, but I'm going to summarize it.
Cool.
If you follow the process of human brain first to sort of fine tune what it is you want to produce, and then AI to generate some raw material to get you started, or at least to, tweak your text or whatever, and then human brain again afterwards, what you're doing in that step 3, the human brain, is you're trying to humanize the AI assisted text and blend it with your own thinking, but you're also trying to create resonance, which AI can't do. So AI can, with the right prompts, produce relevant output, but it's not going to resonate because obviously there's no human emotion. And so what I suggest that you do in that humanizing process is introduce first person. So first person, singular and plural, I and we. I find that AI can do you, second person, reasonably well, and third person, they, them, he, she, reasonably well, but it can't do I or we. So I would introduce more of that first person, which we used to not do in the early days of SEO, but I think it's gone the other way now. Obviously, AI can't do human emotion or empathy. So the minute you introduce feelings and vulnerabilities, then it's uniquely human. Of course, nuance. And nuance at a level of rich and vivid detail. AI is not great at hyper-specific detail. It can add in adjectives and it can describe, using the 5 senses, but it's going to be very surface level. You'll never get an AI to produce, I'm just pulling something out of my head, out of fresh air now, but an AI wouldn't be able to describe candy floss as sticky-fingered fun because it doesn't think like that.
Yeah.
And then AI doesn't have a lens based on experience because it isn't human. So it can't tell stories that resonate. It can tell stories, but they don't feel real. And so for as long as we have an emotional edge, we need to be leveraging that edge when we iterate, when we humanize the copy. So it's first person, it's emotion, empathy, nuance, storytelling, and then hyper-localized detail, vividness, subtlety. So not that hammer that you spoke about. AI goes very American pushy, what I call American pushy, because it derives a lot of its output from American or at least developed world westernized content. That's the base of its, source material.
Yeah.
So there's no Afrocentricity. It's very conservative politically. It's very white male driven. So if you want any of that localization, you're going to have to work that in yourself. And then what we do is we use what we call bizarre but brilliant metaphor. So my colleague Inga is very good at this. We take 2 completely unrelated things like Lego and employer branding, and we create a comparison between those 2 things. AI can't do that. So it's bizarre metaphors that connect seemingly unrelated things. So for example, Christmas crackers as an analogy for website performance, or MasterChef as an analogy for, I don't know, whatever, thought leadership. AI is bad, not just bad at it, can't do it at all.
What's that phrase called again?
Bizarre but brilliant metaphors.
Yeah, it's lovely. That's lovely. That's my.
So we do that a lot. And in fact, that's the talk I gave in London a week ago, I think. What's today? Yeah, a week ago now, was on those weird creative angles things, because AI can't do that, and I think is a while away from being able to do that. So that's something quite unique that we can use to humanize our stuff.
Awesome. Tiffany, we got a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to jump into our last group question that came through, and it's also on our list to get into. So we don't have long, so we should jump straight in on this. But we know that this is an area that's sort of surrounded by a lot of rules, regulations, and some ethical boundaries around plagiarism. Can you sort of expand on some of your either experiences or the knowledge around this particular space? Who owns AI content?
Not you.
Not you.
No. So the thing is that there are multiple issues when it comes to IP in the context of AI. Firstly, if an LLM is programmed to generate content based on existing text that exists out there in the world, firstly, who owns the existing text that's being used? That's one issue. But the second issue is who owns the resulting creation? Because you don't. And if you're selling it to clients, you're selling them something that technically you don't own the IP for. So please be very aware that anything you put into ChatGPT as a prompt and anything it feeds you back, you don't own either of those things. Okay, you are ceding your IP to whichever platform you're using by pressing submit, but also by taking what comes out. There aren't really regulations in place. The Copyright Act and the Geneva Convention, and none of this really speaks to AI yet. And I don't think it will for some time. We know that legislation always lags behind reality. But also bear in mind that because AI systems are programmed to extract data from publicly available sources, there's enormous potential for IP infringement, trade secret misappropriation, unfair competition. Like there's a maelstrom of potential drama. And so I would encourage very neurotic caution when it comes to what you put in as a prompt and what you do with the output. And bear in mind that you don't own either of them. Also bear in mind that the minute you put in any sort of personal information or identifying information, client brand names or whatever, it's then part of a mass of, like in Minority Report, it's part of the groupthink. So don't do that. But also, the only way to use AI ethically for now, in the absence of cogent regulation, is disclosure. You have to disclose that the copy or content was AI assisted, and it's a good idea to disclose how you were assisted by AI and which AI assisted you. You must attribute your sources properly. So this is why, for some thinking, I prefer Bing, Microsoft Bing, to ChatGPT, because Bing gives you like attribution, source attribution that you can follow. So it tells you where it's getting the input from. But also it's important to define your process for clients. This is how we use AI. This is where we start and where we stop. This is what we disclose and what we don't disclose. This is how transparent we can be and not be. So you really have to think about that until legislation is good enough. And then also just a little tip for those who have employees, contractors, partners, please include clauses in your contracts that define the rules for AI-related creation. What can they do? What can't they do? Who owns it? Please just include those clauses ahead of time before you have drama later.
Oh, that's good points. I do know of some legislation that talks to things like if you were to, as an example, use ChatGPT to write a book and it wrote that book for you and you published it first. So in that case, publishing always works on a case that whoever published it first is yours. That's how that works. But if someone else is writing a very similar or the same book at the same time, and you've held on to your draft and they publish it before you, then if you publish yours the day after, you're in contravention of that publishing law. And so it's very difficult to claim ownership over anything. What happens though is that the day you publish it, you take ownership of that. So you can't turn around and say, no, but AI gave it to me. The day you take ownership as a brand or a copywriter is the day that you submit that as your own copy. If you publish that on a blog, you are claiming that as owned copy by you. You can't turn around and say, no, but we didn't do it. It was that copywriter. It's your own content. So you need to make sure that it's been fact-checked and that the stats are correct and all the rest of it. And you need to, like you would with any copywriter, it's the same process. And so that the content that gets released is owned by you. And so if you have fired your copywriter and you're running everything through ChatGPT, you still need to be doing all those fact checks across the basis, because that risk is there. If you publish, you need to be able to prove that content, because it's not AI. No one's going to sue ChatGPT. It's going to come for you.
Well, some companies have sued OpenAI for unfair competition. Yeah. Because ChatGPT has been trained on copyrighted code and then produced similar code. And so there was an unfair infringement claim, and OpenAI lost.
But that's a copyright infringement issue. That's not a
responsibility issue.
Yeah, it's not a trade, like a content issue. Yeah. So yeah, but yes. So hopefully that does help, and those that are kind of questioning where it comes from. Like Tiffany said, the ownership, no one owns anything once it comes out of AI. But if you publish it, it's yours. It doesn't matter where it came from. So you better make sure that you know where everything came from. I've challenged ChatGPT plenty of times. Where did you get that stat? And then it will literally reply and say, "Oh, sorry, I don't know where I got that."
I made it up. Yeah,
not true.
It's told me that I used to sing in my church choir. Firstly, I'm Jewish. Secondly, I can't sing. So that's interesting.
So guys, we have reached our time, so I'm going to wrap it up at that point. Thank you so much for coming through. I'm going to ask Tash just to drop one link in before we leave, and that's to our last webinar for in this series, and that's to our personal branding on LinkedIn webinar that's taking place in about a week or two's time. So you guys can jump on that if you want to. And then just to say a super massive thanks to everybody. We will drop you a link to a recording to this. And when we and just keep an eye out for when we do get around to condensing this webinar into a paper with some of the extra questions that come into play. And if you do have any more questions that are sitting on your mind, feel free to just reply back to any of our mails that we send you, and we'll file that through. We intend on running these webinars on a consistent basis throughout our future. So you could stay in touch and we will keep them coming. And hopefully Tiffany has enjoyed herself and she'll come back and fill out our feedback form so that we can and tell us that you want her back so that we can convince her, and that'll be great. But,
I don't take much convincing.
Which is great.
Just a quick note to those. I see that there was a question in the chat, in the questions box. So if there are any further questions that we've not gotten to, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I can answer them there, or you can email them through to Mike and the team, and they can get forwarded to me that way. But most of you know how to find me pretty much everywhere. Just Google me and spell my name right, and you'll find me. Mike, can I end off with one final message?
Perfect.
I like to think about intelligence in two ways. There's human intelligence, which is what we have in our heads, the organic one. And then there's machine intelligence, which is augmented intelligence. So I actually think augmented is better than artificial when it comes to defining what AI stands for. If you want to remain relevant as any kind of communicator into the future, you have to augment your intelligence in some way. And if you don't do this, if you don't get comfortable using whatever technologies are around, so it's AI now, but it might be something else in the future, then you're like an athlete playing in a sport where steroids are allowed, but you choose to go natural. Okay, that's great, but you'll lose. Use whatever augmentation is available to you if you want to remain relevant. To future-proof yourself, you absolutely have to get comfortable with augmentation on the go.
Yeah,
that's my final message.
Tiffany, thank you so much. There's been a lot of wisdom shared today, and we appreciate your experience in this. And I'm sure everybody else feels the same. We will chat soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great, great Tuesday. Yeah, cheers.